number of people forcibly displaced as a result of persecution, conflict, generalized violence, and human rights violations, as estimated by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is over 65 million. This is the highest number of displaced people on record. This is the refugee crisis. We asked millennials of various nationalities what they think should be done about refugees, whether they think that refugee intake should be increased or decreased in their nation, and whether they believe that refugees add or detract. Through these interviews, we hope to explore how the utilitarian theory of justice applies to this modern-day issue. Utilitarianism was first theorized by the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham. He would argue that the decisions of human beings are based upon their tendency to seek pleasure and to avoid pain. Therefore, the morality of an action depends on whether it maximizes overall happiness.
Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
This is achieved by producing pleasure and avoiding pain for the majority of people, even if at the detriment of the minority. Applied to political life, Bentham's theory entails determining which political decision maximizes happiness, and this relies merely on a cost-benefit analysis, in which individual rights are to be respected only insofar as they serve as an instrument for the benefit of the majority. An important point of criticism to Bentham's theory is that if it fails to give adequate weight to human dignity by making rights contingent on whether they benefit the majority. This is in stark contrast to the Kantian conception of dignity, according to which people must be considered as ends themselves rather than merely as instruments. In the following interviews, many people base their ideas on ideas of human dignity. This shows that when applied to the real world, many find the utilitarian argument, as presented by Bentham, unappealing. However, it is clear that others thought that the cost of welcoming refugees to our society was simply too great and would cause too much pain to the majority, so they should not be welcomed. This demonstrates that others do use lines of thinking similar to that of Bentham.
Yes, I think economically, in the short term, definitely you can see it's some of a cost to our economy, but in the long run, I think everybody who's younger than 40 is kind of reversing our demographic trend, which my country is facing. So that's a positive thing, of course, because it's an economic workforce, if you want. So that's a positive thing.
I think after a while, as long as they get a chance to integrate with the society, I think they can contribute positively.
Well, in my opinion, you have to look at it case by case, because there are many people that actually do, contribute to society and actually engage with society. But you also have quite a large group that is totally not engaging with the existing community here. And I think those are not contributing anything to the society.
Well, at this point, I would say I would be on the negative way of that question, because if they pay taxes, they adopt our own culture and sort of historical background, and we can say they are sort of a member of our country, but they, in terms of, the religion is a really important matter. I think they wouldn't give up their religion, but at least they should think about why we accept them and what we expect them to be a member of South Korean.
As I said, I think the reason why is because I think they just have the right to, even if they wouldn't contribute positively in any of those dimensions. I think they would still just have, we would have the obligation to cover them, kind of. And
it is a good thing that we take refugees in, because it's not fair for kids and their families to go through what they're going through. So I think it's important for more developed countries to take care of these people.
You need incoming people into society, but and you certainly, for a humanistic point, you need to accept people that come from war zones or any other kind of zones with basically troubles like no access to water or whatever. But simply accepting people, just opening borders, just to let everyone in without thinking of what percentage of people you're taking in on the existing population and a plan to have the different types of societies, so communal or individualistic, and how to integrate that well is a really bad idea. I think you would be better off not taking them in than taking them all in at once without any form of plan.
In terms of for about my country, as in South Korean, I would say we must help them and accept them to be settled in for a while in terms of the disaster of the civil wars or something.
In an attempt to answer the criticism that utilitarianism does not take sufficient account of human dignity, the utilitarian philosopher John Stuart Mill tried to reconcile individual rights with utilitarianism. He stressed the importance of the long-term welfare of the community, and he argued that such achievement demands respect for individual rights, since they enable individuals to develop to their fullest potential. Whilst this can be tenuously linked to utilitarianism, on the ground that such human development will be positive for society, it does really seem to go beyond utilitarianism and to rest on principles of human dignity. This documentary began by explaining Bentham's theory. This theory argues that the morally right action is the action that produces the greatest good for the community as a whole. Through our interviews, we hope to explore this theory and how it applies to refugees by asking whether people felt positively or negatively about governments taking in refugees. The majority of the people said that they think that in the beginning, refugees will not contribute positively to the community, as they don't have any money and they don't speak the language. So it can be said that the action of taking in refugees does not produce the greatest good for the community. Nevertheless, some people still wanted to take in refugees on humanitarian grounds. This idea of taking people in, even if it is to the detriment of the community, goes against Bentham's ideas, showing that the theory is unappealing for the millennials that we interviewed in the current society. Another point that caught our attention was that even though people thought the refugees do not contribute to the community in the beginning, in the long run they will add to the community and the greater good. This viewpoint adds further weight to the idea that Bentham's theory is insufficient to be used to solve the refugee crisis. The documentary then went on to explore Mill's ideas of utilitarianism. This aimed to remedy the critiques of Bentham's theory. However, as shown in the documentary, this theory goes beyond utilitarianism and is really based on human dignity. Fundamentally, it appears that for many, utilitarian thinking is an inadequate basis on which to form arguments regarding how to solve the refugee crisis. The focus on human dignity in the interviews reveals that people seem to prefer Mills's approach, but since this goes beyond utilitarianism, this adds weight to our conclusion that pure utilitarianism provides an unattractive solution.